Hello everyone, my name is Pushpa Palanchoke and I am a graduate student at Kathmandu University School of Music. I am also the program coordinator for Satori Center for the Arts Folk Lok program. Folk Lok is a community-based arts program that responds to the needs of indigenous music groups in Nepal. Since early 2020, we have been working closely with Tahnani Dapha Khalah, an indigenous music group from Kirtipur, an urban settlement that is over a millennia old and is located in the Kathmandu Valley. My presentation today reflects on the group's recently held apprenticeship program that was supported by Folk Lok. As part of our support, we had introduced a couple of digital programming initiatives to mitigate the risks of meeting in person during the pandemic. Our experience suggests that digital learning platforms are not able to accommodate the embodied and socially situated knowledge that is shared during the apprenticeship program. Well, Dapha is a musical genre with over 400 years of documented history among the Newars, an indigenous community from the Kathmandu Valley. It is a community-based practice that is intertwined with the urban, spiritual and seasonal lifestyle of the Newars. Although traditionally it was only men from a community who participated in the group, female participation is increasingly more common. Folk Lok supported the introduction of women into Tahnani Dapha Khalah's apprenticeship program this year. TDK, Tahnani Dapha Khalah, is one of 19 Dapha groups in Kirtipur. Using drums and cymbals, the group sings songs based on texts that have been handed down for generations in a safu, a book or manuscript. These manuscripts have songs dating as far back as the 12th century. Dapha songs are mostly sung in the language of Newars, Nepal Bhasa, but two other languages, Maithili and Sanskrit, are liberally mixed within the songs. These songs are on a variety of topics including love and romance, tragedy and revelations, nature and farming, crops and harvest, fruits and flowers, and prayers to various deities. Dapha groups are community-based and are tied closely to local customs and seasonal activities. They play an important role in the annual festivals that mark the Newar calendar. Dapha groups are a part of many sacred dances, dramas, performances, and celebratory processions held throughout the year. To give you an example, Tahnani Dapha Khalah brings out a ritualistic dance performance and a procession called the Devi Pyakha, meaning the dance of goddess. The procession is conducted every year on the 11th month of the Newar calendar. It features masked dancers representing the gods and goddesses of the city, accompanied by Dapha music. Besides such huge public events, the Dapha Khalahs also partake in private events like life rights celebrations of community members. In this regard, the Dapha's apprenticeship programs are not just about learning to sing and play, they are an initiation into the traditions and practices of the Newar community. Since the conquest of the Kathmandu Valley by the Gorkhali Empire in the late 1700s, Newar indigenous culture has been suppressed by the Nepali state. For a while, it was illegal to speak, write and publish in Nepal Bhasa. In addition to this, Nepal's education system was designed to gradually eradicate indigenous language in favor of Nepali, the state-sponsored language of the ruling Brahmins and Kshetris. Nepali education in schools privileges conceptual thinking, the Nepali language, and a Brahmanical patriarchal value system. This has resulted in a perception of Dapha music as being primitive and of the past. Much of what TDK does is understood under the broad terms of heritage and tradition. Newar youth see little use for their mother tongues in a global economy and understand Dapha to be an ossified relic of the past. Dapha practice is interpreted as a tradition that is just about repetition, lacking creativity. The marginalization of indigenous knowledge is not surprising in today's world. TDK's knowledge is embodied in the practice and routine of its practitioners and situated within the land, life cycles, and physical infrastructure of their community. It does not always fit into or conform to the ways that knowledge is understood and interpreted through the lens of colonial and Eurocentric epistemologies. TDK's own understanding of embodied ways of knowing is perhaps best illustrated in the central role played by the god of music, beauty and aesthetics, Nasadya. Without any distinctive form, Nasadya is often just represented as a cavity, a triangle, circle, square, or rectangle that is pressed into a wall. Nasadya has a direct relationship with Dapha musicians and their community. The musicians understand that it is Nasadya who enters into them, and it is the Dya that is singing and playing music through them. The Dapha group, the music they play, and the community together communicate a language that comes into being through practice. Dapha practice in Newar communities is on the decline. TDK, for instance, had not hosted an apprenticeship program for over 40 years. TDK's elders attributed this to a decreasing interest in the tradition among younger generations. However, the recent adoption of a federal structure and the formation of local governments has changed this dynamic, with local communities gaining an opportunity to shape their local and educational system. Prior to an involvement in their attempts to revive Dapha practice in their community, TDK had moved their Akache, their learning space, which translates to House of Letters, into a public building. The building's construction was made possible by the newly formed local governments under Nepal's new federal structure. Traditionally, the Akache was hosted inside a master's house. TDK's decision to move the Akache to a public venue was inspired by the need to revitalize the community. The Akache is an institution of high value among Newars because it is a gateway to not only musical knowledge but provides a grounding for their indigenous knowledge as well. Each apprentice is initiated into Newar ways of being in this space. It is a space where young community members learn about their community and begin their growth into their public selves. In this sense, it is a deeply democratic institution that brings individuals together to form a polity. In early 2020, we started working with TDK to help them start their apprenticeship program. The Dapha masters also decided to open the tradition to women, other ethnicities and caste groups who live in their community. Building up to the apprenticeship program, we organized 2 virtual events, a storytelling workshop for youth and a discussion series. I will talk about what we did and why we did them later, but before that I would like to tell you about the apprenticeship itself. During the apprenticeship, apprentices learn under a master for 6 to 12 months. The learning and teaching processes are not like that of a school. Skills and knowledge are communicated by sharing a space and by doing an activity, playing musical instruments and singing together. During these sessions, the masters share stories and talk about their community, but learning also happens through observation, mimesis and repetition. In early 2021, between the first and second waves of the pandemic, TDK started its apprenticeship program. However, the second lockdown announced on 2nd May 2021 brought the apprenticeship to halt. The first program we organized was a virtual storytelling workshop. The workshops intended to engage younger community members with their elders from TDK, encouraging them to listen and share stories with each other. While the elders in TDK showed an interest in the workshop, they were not able to convince the younger generation. The workshop was held with 5 youth participants out of the 10 who had shown an interest. For many of the youth, with school classes also happening online, coming online for additional hours was not appealing. Even for those who attended the workshop, it was often difficult for them to connect the activities and the conversation they held online to the Dapha music their elders played. In November, we organized an online panel discussion series, Dapha Calling. Discussions were held on traditional knowledge, ritual and pedagogy in the Dapha tradition, and the challenges and prospects faced by Dapha groups. While the event was successful in engaging a wide range of participants, including international academics, local culture activists, musicians, and local government representatives, many of TDK's practitioners were unable to attend. While a lack of digital literacy might appear to be the primary reason for low participation, there are some deeper issues at play. We felt that Dapha members, especially the elder masters, were unable to really engage in the discourse. While we had hoped that the elders would be able to participate in the conversations, the digital platform, we use Zoom, dislocated them from the way Dapha knowledge is expressed and embodied. They come together as a group in a public space. So we observed a disconnect when the community was online, especially when they were on their own without the presence of other group members. After all, Dapha is not a genre of music that can be sung alone, and within Newar society, all aspects of its performance are intricately tied to the community and its activities. Digital tools, in other words, have significant epistemic limitations in their ability to share embodied knowledge and provide a learning ground for indigenous knowledge. So here I end my presentation.